Velchi Banned Book Club meeting is called to order. Coming up next, I'll speak to George M. Johnson, the author of All Boys Aren't Blue, about the seemingly relentless calls to ban their memoir and more about their unique and deeply human story. Thanks to all of you who've written in about it. It's coming up next on Velchi. Book banning is back, or maybe it never really left. Name a state, and it or school boards in it are literally challenging books that open your eyes or challenge your worldview, or at least did for you in high school or middle school. Oklahoma State Senator Rob Standridge filed a bill targeting books in his state. Texas Governor Greg Abbott is making conservative-minded education the central focus of his re-election campaign. We've covered the banning of the Holocaust graphic novel Mouse in Tennessee a few weeks ago on this show. All of this is in the name of protecting children from this cruel world, or leaving them ignorant to it. Which is why we launched the Velchi Banned Book Club, to highlight works of literature that deserve a place on shelves in libraries across the United States. We want to look at why a book was targeted and what it means to you, the members of this book club. You're all members, whether you want to be or not. It's important to note that we will not just be focusing on books banned by conservative groups apropos of nothing. The Velchi Banned Book Club condemns all forms of censorship, regardless of party affiliation. We're going to pick books to cover accordingly. The good news for the book club, but the bad news for society, is that there are many, many banned books to choose from. Having said that, selecting our inaugural book to feature was easy. It had to be George M. Johnson's debut and best-selling book, All Boys Aren't Blue. This memoir was published back in 2020, but calls to have it removed from libraries across the nation are intensifying. 15 states have called for bans or have already taken copies of All Boys Aren't Blue off of library shelves and school shelves. Looks like more removals could be on the way. All Boys Aren't Blue has been the ire of many conservative groups that argue that the book's depiction of sexual assault and sexual awakening are pornographic. Many other pieces of LGBTQ+ literature are challenged for exactly the same reason. All Boys Aren't Blue is a poignant coming-of-age story as told by a series of essays. It follows Johnson from New Jersey to Virginia and from childhood to young adulthood as they grapple with their identity and agency as a black, non-binary person. It's inherently intersectional, as is Johnson's life. All Boys Aren't Blue touches on a breadth of crucial topics, including institutionalized and racialized violence, sexual abuse, and gender identity. The reader joins Johnson as they recount schoolyard bullies, the flea market with their beloved grandmother, and the joy of finding community in a college fraternity. While Johnson explicitly states that the aim of this book is to, quote, give a voice to so many from marginalized communities whose experiences have not yet been captured between the pages of a book, end quote. It is worth noting, I've invited you all to comment on this book, to buy it, to read it, and comment on it. It's worth noting how many cisgendered white Velchi viewers wrote in with emotional reactions after finishing their copy. Very nuanced criticisms in a good way. Clearly, All Boys Aren't Blue resonates on a deeply human level for many kinds of people. It certainly did for me. After this break, I will talk to the author, George M. Johnson. Stay with us. Welcome to the first meeting of the Velchi Banned Book Club. Joining me now is George M. Johnson, the author of the best-selling memoir manifesto, All Boys Aren't Blue. George is a writer. He's an activist. He's an author featured in numerous publications, but perhaps most importantly, the first ever author to be featured on the Velchi Banned Book Club. George, welcome to you. Thank you for participating in this with us.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Look, you can't Google All Boys Aren't Blue without seeing another school district considering it for a ban or removal from shelves. Someone in Florida threatened legal action over having a copy in the school library. So we're not talking about being in the curriculum, the idea that it was even in the library. This is what book banning is all about. What is it about your book that you believe has made it such a target?
Yeah, it's very simple. My book tells the truth. My book tells the truth about the Black experience. It tells the truth about the queer experience, and it tells the truth about the Black queer experience. And so a lot of people are upset because my book gives the actual truth against the stories that many of us historically as young adults have been conditioned to think was the truth. So I push back against the notions of the forefathers and the founders of this nation, and I give the actual truth about what the real experience is like to grow up Black and queer in America. And we know that one thing about the United States of America is that telling the truth about the situation that we are in has always been a threat to the truth that has always been indoctrinated in us. And so, yeah, my book tells the truth. And a lot of people are not happy about that.
What do you say to arguments that it's about the sex? There are 2 detailed sex scenes including a scene involving rape. You write about sexual trauma, about sexual awakening. In fact, one of our viewers wrote in part saying, I wouldn't want a child to read this chapter before they had been introduced to the way normal sex, that's their language, normal sex happens, and the health risks related to all kinds of sex. I would want kids to know that the health risks of any kind of contact expands exponentially when people are in contact with more people. The viewer goes on to argue in favor of banning All Boys Aren't Blue for elementary school students, but not for older students. What do you make of that?
What I make of that is, well, thank you, because on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and every other major website, the book is for 14 to 18-year-olds. So thank you for confirming exactly what we've been saying from the very beginning. It's interesting that the term child is being used. This book is not for children. It is not a children's book. It's not a middle grade book. It is a young adult book for kids age 14 to 18. And when you also look at the website, it also says grade 10 through 12. So this book is geared towards young adults who are actually experiencing those type of things. Because I dealt with sexual assault by the age of 12, to say like, oh, I don't want my child to read about this. It's like, yes, but like if your child is already 16 and I was 12 when I dealt with this, your child could already be dealing with this issue, right? And then to pretend that our teens are not, even if they're not having sex, they're talking about it. This book is literally just a resource guide to give them the information, the tools, and the knowledge that they need should they enter that particular space. Because our school systems are trying to deny them that information, but denying them that information doesn't mean that they're not still dealing with the actual thing that's happening. And so that's all my book is doing.
And so our viewer was not wrong in saying that it's not for little kids. You didn't intend it to be for little kids. On page 274 of your book, you write, queer folks often live a second adolescence throughout much of their adult lives because of this deprivation. I didn't explore sexuality during my teen years. I didn't have openly gay friends or mentors growing up. I didn't have the opportunity to date boys or have a boyfriend. I had to figure a lot of this S word out on my own. Some of the mistakes people make and the lessons they learn from exploring their teens, I was just starting to learn as I transitioned to adulthood. That captured, to me, the point of your book.
Yes, absolutely. The second adolescence, we talk about it a lot. Queer people have to live the second adolescence. And so what happens is, because we are denied the ability to pick up certain social cues and social skills in our teenage years, once we have, in many ways, what we feel as the freedom to explore it, we're already considered adults. And so we are making juvenile mistakes in our adult years simply because during our juvenile years, we had no opportunity to live them out. We had no opportunity to explore. We had no opportunity to take the risk and to learn how to sharpen that tool of social development. And so many of us, including myself, still to this day, I'm 36. I still do things that I'm like, why did I do that? And it's like, oh, because I should have been able to explore this particular aspect of my life when I was a teen. And I'm only getting to explore it now as an adult because I have more freedom to do so. But most heterosexual people have already explored this particular type of thing.
It is a YA novel. You would like it if people who were going through what you had gone through would read it as a bit of a guide. I don't know what proportion of my viewers right now are Black, queer, non-binary, but in fact, I had a lot of emails from white, cisgendered, straight people who enjoyed reading your book. I don't know if they agreed with it, I don't know if they liked it, but they thought it was eye-opening. Is that any part of your audience? Do you care that my white, straight audience reads your book?
Absolutely. It's extremely important that those who have the power to pass their privilege are reading this book. And so one thing that I've noticed just throughout the whole book being out is that white heterosexual, not just women, but men have been reading the book. White heterosexual parents have been reading the book and literally emailing me and telling me that it's helping them with how they're rearing their children and how they're going to have conversations with their children. And so it's extremely important because the next generation is Gen Z. And if we can get in their minds that people like me exist, when they become the next senators, governors, CEOs of organizations as cis white people, they will already have in mind that people like me exist. And they will include in the plans of change that people like me exist.
George, an amazing conversation, which I wish could go on for a very long time, but it will with our book club, and we'll keep forwarding you emails that we get, and people can continue to engage with the book. Thank you so much, George, for being our first author. George M. Johnson is the author of All Boys Aren't Blue and We Are Not Broken. The Velchi Banned Book Club is just getting started. Our second book club meeting will cover the frequently celebrated and frequently banned American classic, To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee. Since its publication in the early 1960s, To Kill a Mockingbird has been translated into 40 languages and has sold more than 40 million copies worldwide. It's been praised for its subject matter, a child awakening to the abject racism in the U.S. South, but it's been contested for embodying the toxic white savior complex ideology. Many members of the Velchi Banned Book Club will remember reading this for high school English class. Others will not. It's been historically contested in libraries and on reading lists for generations. Many book club members already wrote in with memories and opinions on To Kill a Mockingbird. It was far and away one of our most requested books, so we listened. This is a club, after all. Pick up a fresh copy of To Kill a Mockingbird or dust off an old one. Tune in next Sunday for our discussion. Please continue.